Good day, everyone. I am the architect Andrea Cendejas, and together with Dr. Dulce Garcia, we will talk about the Rurban, and Periurban theme, conceptual difference and scope in the transformation of the territory being an advance of my research thesis. As content, we have the introduction to the subject, therefore, the problem of the phenomenon, theoretical framework and state of the art, the methods used, results and discussions, and finally the reference. As an introduction, we have that given the difference between the urban and the rural, concerns have been generated in the border dynamics studies that usually focus on environmental issues, segregations, imbalance, and inequalities, thus emerging new territories such as the periurban, rurban, and rururban. To what we ask ourselves, what are the difference in scope that concepts have in the territory in Latin American cities? In this way, the problem that arises in the expansion of the cities by real estate agents, industries that change the use of the land, as well the territorial restructuring due to globalization that modifies the rural environment and urban centers is seen. As a consequence, we have impacts to the natural environment and the fragmentation of ecosystems. The causes of this ground being urban and housing policies, unaffordable housing, insufficient public investment, inefficient planning, and a standard regulatory framework for, for everything. To visualize this problem, it is possible to see in the following map the case of metropolitan area of Guadalajara. In color yellow, the urbanized area that such as has an infrastructure service as well as the history center. It can be the trend has been towards to the decrease of the population in this type of intra-urban areas, moving to the other sides, which we can see in color orange in our map, that represents the expansion of the population due to the accessibility of land use as it is cheaper and more affordable. Likewise, on the map, we find the color red, the consolidation of a new territory, and in color pink are considered areas without a contemplated population. Then we have the theoretical framework. This phenomenon is identified in the peri-urban territory that since 1979 have been defined as rural agglomeration beyond historical limits. Already in 2000, it is also mentioning that they are borders that are not a field, but it is not a city either. Barsky mentions that it is a diffuse city of word, and Avila comments in the sense that the population abandons urban areas towards suburban or rural areas. This is how other types of incidents arise, such as the urban territory, which is considered a territory with rural characteristics, where according to Sobrino in 2012, it is a construct of a new social order settled in the countryside, where according to Galpin in 2021, he affirms that these are the transformation of intermediate cities that are not urban but are not rural either. Therefore, they are territorial organization with interrelationships. The urban territory, on the other hand, affects the periphery. It is an irregular mosaic without precise limits, which become entities with their conditions. It is an external fridge to the peri-urban and consider four dimensions, that is agriculture, residential, industrial, and held in the countryside. Therefore, in the state of the art, it is possible to conclude that the peri-urban is the presence of parcels with large extensions, where strong environmental tensions are experienced. The urban is a dwelling with spatial limits that are blurred, and the Rururban is the margin of the countryside, and city with intentions, own interest, and values.
To find out what are the conceptual scope and differentiation between the urban, and periurban on the territory, we make a documental study searching in websites such Redalic, SCirus, SCL, Delnet, and participation in the international conference to discuss the concepts. Once all the documents were identified, the selection, classification, and analysis of the concept were carried out through a qualitative study with Atlas T2, where first of all need to codify the concept of urban, and periurban. Then we ordered the information with a synthesis table in order to see the relationship and the differentiation between each concept. To finish, we make timeline to graphically and locate the beginning of the phenomenon, the development, and what is the trend in order to clarify the concepts. As a result of this analysis, we design a synthesis diagram in order to express the difference and relationship between each concept of a study. That is the principal purpose of this research. On the center, yeah, with yellow color, we identify the urbanization like a city, metropolitan area, etc. Followed with orange color, we can identify the periurbanization of the city or metropolitan area. On the third level, we can identify with green circle the rurbanization. This territory is a space intermediate between rural areas and peri-urban areas. This space emerged due to the not planned excessive growth of the cities. It's not an urbanization, it's not a rural area. These areas are the limit between peri-urban and rural area that are mixed. This. So we can understand that urbanization is the factor that transforms the landscape, which contains peri-urban areas in constant growth. These areas are continuous space whose distribution obeys randomly, is located as a diffuse limit of the urbanization or urbanization. On the other hand, the rururban is an evolutionary process with precise limits that are exposed to migration and change in the use of land caused by the urbanization. In addition, the red urbanization, this one, is a space that the actors share practices and social activities that are cultivated in rural customs that are not rural and not urban. It must also be understood that rural life is country life, everything related to the work that is carried out in this part of the territory, such as agriculture and livestock, among others. Therefore, it is possible through this analysis to contribute to conceptualize, identify the area of the mind and the scope of each concept. In the next phase of the investigation, we proceed to the identification of the study cases in the territory in order to expand the analysis as well as to identify the effects and impacts on the territory. In conclusion, case studies must be identified to categorize in this same spatial condition the impacts generated by this type of system in terms of housing, environmental, and social part of each of the cases must identify. For this reason, conceptualization is important since being concepts that are scattered but connect. They must be understood and analyzed independently. but you need to identify the relationship. Since their similarities of being isolated spaces with rural characteristics, with land use problems, irregular settlements, and real estate speculation, are spaces that belong to protect natural areas, being left or of their environment when used accessible. In this way, it is to be the beginning of the development and consideration of territorial planning with greater detail that can identify these areas as living entities and their conflicts. Here, the reference of this study, and well, thank you for your time.